I want to thank all of you for coming from all over the place. We've got Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. We've got the neighborhood. I think Jim Pomerantz just got here from Arizona, so he probably has furthest traveled. And so this is just so great. We have family, friends from old and new friends. We have community, we have neighbors. And so it is just great to have all of you here. And I can't thank you enough for coming on this really fun day to have this great honor for doing this honorary street sign for Dennis Downs, my husband. So we're so happy. Yay! So a special thank you goes out to our alderman, Brian Hopkins, for proposing this idea of the honorary street sign. And I'm sure Dennis, he would not have thought of such an honor ever happening. And so I'm sure he is here and watching. So I really, I can't thank Brian Hopkins enough. So it's just great. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but actually today is the holiday called Day of the Dead. And what a coincidence. So the Day of the Dead is actually a celebration that honors deceased loved ones that and the lives that they lived. It was done by the Aztec and indigenous cultures. And they say that although they are no longer with us, they are remembered and are celebrated, and that their spirits will return to be with us during this holiday. Isn't that interesting? So does that make this the most perfect timing to have our dedication? So at this time, I would like to present and thank our alderman and friend, Alderman Brian Hopkins of the 2nd Ward.
Thank you so much, Gail. Good morning, everyone. What an appropriate, perfect, fitting tribute to our good friend Dennis Downs. I'm so delighted to be here. And as you can see, I'm wearing the official garb of the transportation engineers who do signs for a living. That's what they do. Our Chicago Department of Transportation crew, they install all manner of signs all over the city, and they do an important job. And the traffic engineers have a name for the science of signage. It's called wayfinding, which is kind of a whimsical name for putting up signs, wayfinding. And there's people in the Department of Transportation whose job is wayfinding. And I bring that up because with the obvious connection to Dennis and some of the work that he was most known for was wayfinding. Wayfinding is an ancient science. The first peoples did it. Anybody who needed to get around on the planet at some point had to engage in the science of wayfinding, and that is what Dennis was most known for, among the many other things. That's why I think this is a perfect fitting tribute to him, and Gail, thank you for giving me the credit for it, but I'm not going to take credit for the idea. Some ideas are just so self-evident that this one just kind of conceived of itself, and I know Dennis would be absolutely delighted for what we're doing today by one of his most remarkable pieces of art. There's another term that the traffic wayfinding engineers use for signs that are placed along the route to let you know you're going to your destination. That phrase is called a confidence marker. We were the confidence markers in Dennis's life. His friends, his family, the people who knew him and loved him, and the people who patronized his art and who contributed to the success that he had in the many roles he played. We were the ones that let him know that he was on the right path, that the trail Dennis blazed in the course of his life was singular. It was remarkable. I've never known anyone remotely like Dennis Downs. He did so many different things, and he did them all well. He forged many paths. But again, the one he was probably most known for was the trail marker trees, and the book that he published about that. And it talked a little bit about the significance of trails in the history of the first peoples on this continent. And I think we can safely assume the most important trails that had trees also had names. Some of those names may have been lost to history, but they had names. The native peoples named them after natural landmarks, after lakes, rivers, streams, and yes, after their own great leaders, medicine men and chieftains and great warriors, had trails named after them. And that is in fact what we're doing today. We've come full circle. We are naming this trail, if you will, after our dear friend, artist Dennis Downs. Dale?
Thank you. That is the greatest analogy, Brian. You always come up with something amazing. You are truly a great speaker, and we hope you will be our mayor someday. Just saying. And then I just asked Dennis to cut the wind a little bit and turn up the temperature. Please, just a little. So many of you know Dennis from the statue of Cap Streeter that was done about 15 years ago. However, he had many other passions, as Alderman was saying, and one of his was his research and the book he did on Native American trail marker trees and the whole navigational system that the Native Americans had in using the trees. Dennis wrote a book on them called Native American Trail Marker Trees, Marking Paths Through the Wilderness. And so next I would like to introduce Janet Davies, who wrote the foreword for the book and was a friend and history lover from ABC 7 and 190 North. We are so happy to have Janet join us today.
Can I help you, Dad, or would you like to stay there? Hi, Boshonichine. That is hello, everybody in Pokagon Potawatomi, and I say that, and I apologize, I probably didn't pronounce it very well, but I live on what was once Potawatomi land in Michigan. 4 years ago, I retired, and now I live over there, and a few years ago, well, more than a few, I'd say 15, 16 years ago, I discovered I had something very famous on my property, very historically significant. I just thought it was a funky looking tree, and my sons and I, they were young, would just kind of climb up and sit on it. And a mutual friend of Dennis and Gail's and my husband and myself said, when I took him out there to look at it, "You've got something really important, and I've got the guy who can identify it." So Dennis and Gail came over. I'd never met them. They came over and they spent the night. It was colder than this and snowy. In fact, we had to help them. Their truck got caught on some ice, and we live way out in the country, and we had to push their truck, and this was my introduction to Dennis. And the next day we went out, and he said, "Yes, you do. You have a trail marker tree." And I was overjoyed because I love history so much. I love American history. I love Native American history. It was very important, and that became a long friendship with Dennis. So Dennis gave me the honor of writing the foreword to his book. I interviewed Dennis a few times for ABC 7. We kept in contact. I was amazed at this man's creativity, drive, passion. I couldn't believe this was a guy who bought an island and was building by hand a cabin up in Canada each summer. Even after his diagnosis, he was up there doing it. I thought, wow, I am so proud to be a friend of his. And for all of you who have ever known Dennis, know of Dennis, I hope that you can think about his spirit and capture just a little essence of that, because that spirit of his can get into your heart and take you from the past to the present to the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. So she mentioned Dennis's passion. I always called it an irrational passion. It was like he just lived and breathed trail marker trees and his artwork. And I just wish for everybody that you have an irrational passion and something that really drives you, like that excites you as much. So 2 years ago, Dennis and I premiered our documentary on the history of South Streeterville, and many of you were there to enjoy that with us. We now have it on YouTube, so you can check it out there. And one of our main interviewees in the film is Charlie Gardner. He was the former president of Chicago Dock and Canal Trust that owned most of the land down in this area. And our neighborhood is what it is today because of Charlie. So we are really happy to have him here today to say a few words as well.
Well, how about that for a pair to draw to? The Alderman and Janet Davies and now me. So, and of course I have great respect and gratitude to both Gail and Dennis for their work on the history of Streeterville. Dennis was such a special person, talented and exceptional, and most of all, he's a great neighbor to us in McClurg Court. So, always glad to be with him. I just have I also want to recognize, I was given a little credit for this neighborhood, but Bert Lohan, right over here, was the architect for all of this. So, yeah, well done. I also want to say there's no better comparison of Gail and Dennis than Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. Apparently you all know that Ginger did everything he did, but backwards and in heels. So, Mr. Alderman, I hope you have a sign ready for Gail when the time comes. Thank you all.
Thanks, Charlie. But you know, you have to be dead to get a sign. So we won't hope for that for too soon. So, but thank you for the thought. So, the beautiful buildings that we have that were right around us right now, they were built by Golub and Company. And so we are happy to have Lee Golub, the developer, and also a neighbor. He is here, and he commissioned Dennis to do the statue of Cap Streeter, the sculpture. So we all thank him for his contribution to our Streeterville neighborhood.
Hi, everybody. Morning. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Dirk. So, this plaque over here reads, "The eccentric resident who gave Streeterville its name." When we built these two buildings, 2005 and 2007, the first building over here is named Streeter. So we're trying to come up for a name for this building right behind us. And the obvious name was Ville, Streeterville. But we named it Streeter Place. But I'm going to tell a story that probably none of you know, some of you know this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Where the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab currently sits used to be CBS's studio. And we bought that property many years ago and designed a project, 2 towers, big project. First project Alderman Riley actually approved, I think, when he was in office. And with that came the requirement for us to do some public art. It was going to be a statue. We were going to do a statue of the Nixon and Kennedy debate, because that's where that was in 1960. So we were going to do a statue of Nixon and Kennedy somehow. We ended up selling that land to the Rehab Institute, and the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab is there now. But after we built this property, Dennis and Gail came to us and said, "Hey, you know, you were going to do that statue of Nixon and Kennedy, but wouldn't it be great if we had a statue of Captain Streeter here?" So we commissioned Dennis, I think it was $70,000 or $80,000, to do this wonderful piece that has turned into still the only piece of public art in Streeterville, a tourist attraction, and there it goes, whatever. Thanks, Dennis. It's just amazing. Every time I see people just stand around here and look at this, it brings warmth to my heart. We love you, Dennis, and Gail, thank you for doing that. It was a wonderful thing, a wonderful idea. Thank you, everybody. Okay, I'm going to jump. I'm jumping.
All right, and thank you, Lee. Thank you, Brian. I shouldn't have worn these heels. That's really my problem. But you know what? Every single day there's people that are taking pictures in front of Cap Streeter. So it just warms my heart seeing that happen all the time. So it's really fun. So as I mentioned previously, Dennis's work with the Native American community was one that he did a lot of work with a very good friend, Andrew Johnson, who is Cherokee, and he is an executive director of the Native American Chamber of Commerce of Illinois. And Dennis and Andrew did many, many events together, educating the public on the resourcefulness of the Native Americans as well as the Native American trail marker trees. I would also like to recognize we have Hilda Littlefawn Williams here and Lisa D. They're Ottawa that have come, that have also done many, many events with Dennis. So it's great to have them as well. And so I would like to have Andrew come up and say a few words, and then he will be doing a blessing or a smudging of our sign.
Osio, that's hello in Cherokee. And how wonderful to see everyone here to honor Dennis. I feel very honored just to have been considered a friend of his. He did so much for our community. He was such a wonderful man. He was an individual who would look out for others. He was a man of integrity, and it was just a wonderful time every time that we would get together and spend our time. And I'd just like to say, it was a quote from many years ago, actually. We've been friends for a while. And I just want to say that our community, our Native community, is indebted to Dennis Downs for his important and inspiring efforts to discover, properly identify, and preserve the trail marker trees throughout the United States. And as a community, we are honored by his commitment and support of his tireless work. And it's not only with regard to the trail marker trees, it was in almost every public incident, every public event, committees he was on, commissions. He would always ensure that the Native voice was heard, even though it was very difficult for us for many, many years. But he would speak up for us too and ensure that we would be included, that we were there at the table, and we cannot thank him enough for this. So as a blessing, we do what's called a smudging. And it is a sacrament, really, if you can think of it that way, a sacred action of where we take our four medicines. We have the sage that offers our strength, clarity, and wisdom. We have the cedar for purifying. We have the sweetgrass for kindness. And then tobacco, which is our gift and our bridge to our Creator. So when one smudges, you have the smoke. We are lighting it back here, the smoke that rises. And you say your prayer. You say what is in your heart, and the smoke gathers it and takes it up to the Creator. So as we light it, as we come through the audience, the crowd here, if you want to be smudged, please let us know. But please say a prayer for Dennis. Let him know that we're all here, that we're honoring him, and it will rise to the Creator. So one brief song about our connection with the Creator. Windeya-ho, Windeya-ho, Windeya, Windeya, ho, 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 hey-ya, ho, hey-ya, ho, ya, ya, ya. Say your prayer, please, and we'll come around. And thank you, Dennis. Thank you so very much that everything you've done. Thank you, Alderman Hopkins, for honoring him. Thank you all for being here. And this is just a continuation of the memory of Dennis. He is in all of our hearts. Thank you.
As Andrew and Lisa D are finishing the smudging and the blessing, which thank you so much. I think I caught some of it just because the wind is coming this way. So thanks. I will have to say, I even saw, with all of Dennis's work on trail marker trees, I saw this just a couple days ago. I have these Google alerts, and here a Google alert comes up on trail marker trees, and it's these young kids who are telling a story of how the Native Americans would bend the trees as saplings, and how it would point direction to like fresh water or a cave opening. And I'm like, oh my gosh, makes me tear up. It's like all Dennis's work is going to live on through these young kids who have now learned about it. Sorry. I just think his impact has gone on so far, and it will continue with all these younger people learning about it and keeping the history going. So now I'm going to regroup. So that's, and so thank you, Andrew, so much for all Andrew has done. And I'm counting on Andrew and Hilda and Lisa D to keep the story of the Native American trail marker trees alive and continuing all the education. So at this time, it's time for our unveiling. So I'd like to have Alderman Hopkins come forward, and the sign is over here where the alderman is going to have to get to it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to call upon our second ward committeeman, Tim Egan, to help me bring the... He's going to spot me just in case. Okay. By the power vested in me as Alderman of Streeterville and pursuant to a legislative act passed by the Chicago City Council and signed into law by Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, I hereby proclaim the 500 block of North McClurg Court to be known now and forevermore as Honorary Dennis Downs Way. Woo-hoo!